Hey everybody, welcome to Cheap Comic Collector. This is episode number 323. And today we're actually going to do a reading episode. I know a lot of people skip over these, but there's people that really like them, and I wasn't going to do these anymore. I was kind of slip them into the regular videos, but because of me missing the claim sale last week, tomorrow's claim sale is going to be an extra long one because we have two long boxes to go through, and I didn't want to show any new comics that came in and make it even longer because it's going to be a long one. So I was reading this week, so thought we'd go ahead and get that taken care of. And I'm just gonna please like and subscribe, thank you. And we are gonna just move this camera up top so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Yep, there we are. And yes, today we are taking a look at Dal H. But before we get into that, we are going to take a look at Man of Steel. I haven't read this since it came out, I don't think. Yeah, I have the original comics, but this is a trade paperback that I got in not too long ago, and I've been wanting to reread this series, so came at a good time. It's got in the trade here, this actually came out in 87, so this would have been probably the first collection of it. And it's got an introductory by Ray Bradbury, which was a little bit interesting. And then a article by John Byrne about his influences on recreating Superman, which is basically what DC asked him to do in the Superman books at that time. So pretty cool. It does it unfortunately it only reproduces the covers this size in the article. It doesn't actually put them as a page in the book. But the stories are all here, and I'm sure we've all read it, so I probably don't really need to go through and describe what happens. You got Jor-El and so forth, and then kind of starts off with him getting ready to graduate high school, so kind of skipped over his high school years and all that. And but great storytelling. This is a great example of a superhero series and how Superman pretty much should be done. Batman makes an appearance, and just a wonderful read, really. Nice, and even at the time, I thought it was a great read. I thought it made Superman interesting, which, before that, he was just kind of, yeah, he's Superman, okay, But great stuff. Great John Byrne writing and artwork, and really, really cool miniseries. If you haven't read it, and if you're newer to comics and you've never read this, do yourself a favor and find it, because it's a good read. And then also, I was reading Dal H, and I got the whole series here, 1 through. Looks like I double bagged them so I would have some extra boards for the sale. So, all right. So yeah, 1 through 15. I wasn't sure what to expect from this. My introduction to Dal H for Hero was not Robbie Reed, as you might expect in House of Mystery, but the Chris King, Vicki Grant series that ran in like New Adventures of Superboy, Adventure Comics, and I enjoyed those when I got them. And so this is a huge departure from that. Um, and it actually, I enjoyed most of it. And I'll show you. And it's kind of adult oriented. It almost should be a Vertigo series, but it's not quite. And anyway, you got this guy that's killing himself with cancer and overweightness. He lost his wife or something, and his job, and is just very depressed. And his friend here is trying to help him, and they get in a fight, and then he goes after him to apologize, and the guy's getting basically killed in an alleyway, and he tries to help, and accidentally, tries to. Well, he doesn't accidentally. I guess he's trying to call for help in the phone booth, the old phone booth there that's in the alley, and apparently it's a dial, and so he turns into this guy, Boy Chimney. And let me turn the light on. I'm sorry, can't see that very well. There we go. Maybe I should start over. There's the cover, and here's Boy Chimney. And then this character is, it's not really well defined. He basically can cause you to choke to death on smoke or pollution or something, and meanwhile you're seeing this guy's thoughts, because he's basically kind of trapped inside this character's body, and so. And he can, because of the smoke powers, he can access like basically anywhere there's smoke or something. So he sees all these visions of where people are smoking, or where there's factory smoke, or whatever. And you don't quite know what's going on, but that's okay, because neither does the character. It's supposed to be that way. And he goes into his friend in the hospital, who's apparently involved with some kind of mafia types or something. And then there's these other characters, and it all becomes this. It's kind of all about the dial, right? The in issue number 2, he becomes all these different characters briefly, and basically he's addicted. Over time he becomes addicted to using the dial. He can't wait to use it again and see what he's going to turn into. And then there's these other characters there's some kind of shadow figure that's on the line, and it gets closer every time that you use it, and so on and so forth. And so he's trying to protect his friend from getting murdered from these other people, who apparently also have somebody who has a dial. And so he starts to, try to kind of investigate and figure out what's going on. And then this lady shows up, and she also has a dial. This is her here. And she actually wears this costume all the time, no matter what character she becomes. She has this costume that she wears so that she can remember who she is, because they're in danger of forgetting who they are. The memories of whatever they're accessing can take over, and they forget like who they are. So it's a very cool storyline that slowly sort of unveils itself. It's written very well. It's drawn very well, up to a point. And I'll tell you about that when we get there. But and so yes, this is. Well, actually, that's the guy. He turns into a woman, and it freaks him out. So, And then this thing finally arrives that was on the line trying to access whatever. And then it's I don't know. Nothing ever becomes clearly defined for me of what's exactly is going on, other than, you know, these characters, they have dials. The dials can, you know, they can lose their identity to the dials. And so anyway, him and this woman end up teaming up as partners and fighting. They need to fight this abyss that was the thing that was on the line. And then there's some kind of character or creature or something inside of him that's trying to get there. And it does mention like the Chris King and Vicky Grant at one point, those storylines only by means of Chris disappeared a long time ago, and the bad guys basically kidnap and terrorize Chris's brother, whose name I don't remember, to try and learn, you know, information about the dials. Where can they find one? Where can they, you know, who has it, so on and so forth. And then the Zero issue was a little bit disappointing because it's basically a story from long ago where this lady in some kind of tribal setting uses, like an Aztec setting maybe, uses a sundial as a dial. And it's ancient even then. And she uses it to become this character, Bumper Carla. And then, and even way back then, nobody knows what's going on. It's all ancient technology or something that nobody knows how to use. And then a person shows up to murder her because they feel she murdered thousands of people because she stole these powers from somebody else across time, across worlds, whatever it is that's going on. And that's a plot point that comes into play later, where the characters that they become are coming from somewhere. Yeah, they're not just randomly there. That's why they have memories and so on and so forth. They actually are stealing someone else's identity from somewhere in the multiverse. So yeah, it turns out that the woman who the guy teamed up with is an old lady. When she's not in costume, when she's not using the dial, she's an older lady. And if she has information, she can work on the dials a little bit and so on and so forth. But meanwhile, the bad guys are trying to find out, you know, where they are, what's going on. And I mean, the things that they turn into are just bizarre. This is a cock-a-hoop, which is basically a rolling hoop with a rooster head and a couple of rooster hands. So it's a very kind of oddball, bizarre story, but it's a fun read. It's fascinating to read up to a point. So this goes on for a bit. It was an interesting read. I enjoyed it. I up to a point. And so yeah, he's addicted to the dial, so he turns into basically Super Chief here, and I guess he's called Chief Mighty Arrow or something like that, and she won't let him go out because it's racist. And so he's sitting around waiting for an emergency, so he has to go out because, you know, what's the point of turning into a superhero if you can't do anything? And so they're arguing back and forth about whether he can go out and so on and so forth, and what he's trying to find some emergency to respond to. And then something finally happens and his time runs out, and then it's her turn because now they're only down to one dial. The other dial got either broken or stolen. It took me a little while to read through this series, so I don't remember real clearly what happened in each issue. But I should mention the artists and stuff too once I get to the credits here. Yeah, they'll just come up with these bizarre hero concepts, and they'll only be in there for like 1 or 2 panels. And that's it. And so anyway, they start tracking down how they can get another dial. What's going on? Who are these people? What's the story behind these dials? So they're trying to find where they can find one. There's some kind of cult that's involved with the dials. And they find a location where there's supposed to be one, but somebody beat them to it. So, but now they have basically a clue to who's taking them and what's going on. And then they introduce this character. His name's Centipede, and he somehow accesses his future and past selves, and they all become like one person, kind of like you see in this panel. With being fast and you can't really touch them because it's always another one. Like it's just, I mean, you can see him here. This is him. This is all him. And so it's an interesting power. They don't explain it very well. But he's after the dials too, and he's working for this organization who's using them and trying to use them for like military purposes. So they become involved with some kind of government agency thing where they're trying to get a dial or get one back, and so the government is sending these agents after them. And what they find that there's different types of dials. There's the hero dial, which they've already had, but there's a sidekick dial, which you basically turn into a sidekick, and you can't do anything until whoever has the hero dial tells you what to do. This is the Centipede guy. They gave him a helmet. So now there's different types of dials. So they get their hands on a second dial, but it's a sidekick dial. So they're supposed to they're going to take turns, which one is being the hero, which one's being the sidekick. But meanwhile, they're still trying to figure out what's going on in these issues. I don't think we're quite there yet where they have the dial, but it's going pretty good by this point. By the end of the second issue, I was hooked. I thought it was going good. It was an interesting story, and I forgot about the artists again. And so this is where they discover there's a sidekick dial, and part of the reason the government agency is having a problem is they don't understand either that there was you had to have, in order for the sidekick dials to work, you had to have the hero dial. So what they were trying to accomplish wasn't working until somebody with a hero dial shows up and tells the other guy what to do. And so they're able to get away because they can use the guy from the government that had the sidekick dial, because he has to do whatever the person who has the hero dial says. And it's a pretty involved story. And then so they get done with the mission, and then so she's the hero, he's the sidekick, and they're talking about how it feels and so on and so forth, and like, are you being forced to obey me? Or he's like, no, not at all. It feels good. Blah 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 blah. And so she doesn't want to tell him what to do, so she tells him to do whatever he wants to do. So he kisses her, and that's the end of the issue. And then after this, it starts to get weird. I think at this point, maybe the writer got told they were going to get canceled. We're up to issue 11, and it only goes to 15, because after this the storyline starts rushing. So yeah, he got a fold out cover here because he turns into the Flash in this issue. And so it starts off with them in bed. She's an old lady again, and so he's freaked out. It's weird. He accuses her of forcing him, which she didn't do, or she didn't think he did. And he turns into the Flash, and he can't stop running. He doesn't know how to control that power. So, and it starts. Yeah, this is where it starts rushing. It starts introducing a lot of new characters that you don't really get much backstory on. There's a whole team of characters that come into the storyline, including this guy, who is basically like open window man or something. He can access any window as a portal as long as it's open or something like that. Just weird power sets, but yeah, they're being attacked by the centipede guy, and then this whole team comes in of new characters, and they don't take their time to introduce them like they did previously with everybody. It's all of a sudden, no, this is so and so, he does this. This is so and so, they do this. This is so and so, they do that. And so you don't really care. There's no emotional attachment to any of these characters, and yet you're supposed to care about them. But like I said, the instead of taking their time and building the story, all of a sudden it starts rushing. So this is interesting. Now they're in the multiverse. And so this graffiti that's on the wall is actually an alternate reality. So they're trying to figure out how to access it, because there is a dial drawn on the wall. And if they can access the reality, and you can see these people talking, and you can see the open window guy starts having a conversation with this little kid here on the wall. And see, they have a dial, so they're trying to figure out how to access it. And so he keeps telling this kid, the open window guy tries to turn this kid into Batman. He's telling him, how he's going to need to do this, he's going to need to do that, and he's going to he draws him a bat cave under this big mansion that he's living in, and stuff. And the kid's like, what is that? I don't want that, So it's this one is an interesting read for sure. And eventually they figure out a way to access the dial in the graffiti world, and so they have another dial, and at some point here they find out there's more dials. There's ones that will dial technology. There's ones that will do different stuff, and then eventually they run into the operator, which is the last operator, who controls the dials in this world that they're in. I think we get there in this one. Let me see. And so the centipede was actually kind of an agent working for the operator. Here he is here, I guess. And so, he's trying to basically destroy the universes. He's crazy. He has a dial that will access and call up basically a disaster of some sort. And so this is the last issue already, and I still haven't come across any credits. They must have been kind of sneaking them in when I'm not looking. And some of the characters die. There we go. By China Mayville and Alberto Ponticelli, with inks by Dan Green, at least in this issue. And so they're fighting the operator and the people working for him, and yeah, they're all turning into different things and characters, and so the two main characters survive, but some of the auxiliary team that they're working with, who we don't really know that well, die, and there's this big dramatic scene of the one dying, but you know, we don't really understand the characters, so it's hard to care. And then they discover they can basically mix up these lines in the old building where the dials come from, and so they can mess up the operator's control. Like you can see this character here, he becomes like you can see he's part Shazam, he's part Green Lantern, he's part whatever, Aquaman. I see Aquaman in there. So it gets all mixed up, and then and that's pretty much the end. They defeat him. They're stranded on this world, and then on the last panel it says, reach for Justice League, dial E 23.3 for before the ringing in your ear stops. So, and that's the last issue. So I guess it's continued into a Justice League book somewhere. I've never heard of Justice League Dial E. Don't know what that is exactly. So yeah, that's but there you go. That's, oh, we skipped one. Oh well, it's about the same. So that's the storyline. It was interesting up until the point where they just started rushing the ending because they knew they were going to get canceled. So pretty good read. I would recommend checking it out. I think it's definitely different. And that's all I got. So thanks for watching, everybody. Today's well, we actually went almost 30 minutes. Wow. Okay. So thanks for watching. Thanks for checking it out. Please like and subscribe. We got the claim sale tomorrow with 2 full long boxes of the books that we've been showing you the last 2 weeks. And then day after tomorrow on Sunday, definitely check out that episode. I'm going to show you an amazing assortment of books. It's probably going to be a long episode. I've got this huge box of books I want to show you. It's probably almost a long box worth of books, and it's an amazing. I got. I mean, it's not an incredibly amazing deal. They cost me over $1 a piece, but some of the stuff I got, you're just gonna be astonished by. So check that out Sunday, and tomorrow's the claim sale. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.